She didn't move when I opened the trunk. Didn't even lift her head when I said her name. I'm standing in this Walmart parking lot holding a blue collar with a tag that says, "Blue's Home," on it, and she's looking at me like I'm about to break her heart again. Her tail hasn't wagged in 6 weeks. Not once. Not when I brought her home from CrossPlus, not when Mike tried to play fetch, not even when Dustin sat on the floor for an hour just talking to her. She just exists in my house like a ghost who's learned that hope is more dangerous than emptiness. Then she sees the collar in my hand, the real one, not the temporary red Foster one, and something shifts behind her eyes. Something that looks like recognition and terror mixed together. That's when she does something I'll never forget. She takes one step backward. Away from me. Away from the collar. Away from the possibility that this time might be different. Because Blue has been home 4 times before, and every single time, someone gave her back. What happened next in that parking lot stopped 17 people mid-step and made a woman in the next row start crying. But I'm getting ahead of myself. Andrew lives by 3 rules carved into his heart by grief: don't get attached. Don't look at old photos of Max. Only foster, never adopt. It's been 13 months since he lost his dog, and the pain still sits in his chest like a stone he can't swallow. He volunteers at CrossPlus Animal Rescue because it feels like penance, like maybe if he helps enough dogs find homes, he can forgive himself for not being there when Max took his last breath. Foster dogs are perfect. They come, they leave, they don't stay long enough to destroy you when they go. Then Pearl from CrossPlus calls with a favor that sounds more like a last resort. Her name is Blue, Pearl says, and there's something careful in her voice, like she's trying not to scare him off. She's been returned 4 times. The last family said she was emotionally distant. Before that, they said she wouldn't bond. Before that, unresponsive. Andrew, she's been failed so many times she's stopped trying. Andrew's sister Charlotte is with him when he picks Blue up. She's the one who insisted on coming, who said he shouldn't do this alone, who saw through his "I'm fine" facade the moment Max died. Blue doesn't acknowledge them when they open her kennel. She doesn't resist the leash, doesn't pull, doesn't react. She just walks like someone who's learned that fighting and hoping hurt the same amount. For 3 days, Blue doesn't leave her blanket. She positions herself in the corner of Andrew's living room and becomes invisible. She doesn't eat unless Andrew leaves the room. Doesn't make eye contact. Doesn't explore. Mike and Dustin come over to help, they bring toys, treats, encouraging words, but Blue just stares through them like they're already gone. It's like she's not even here, Mike whispers on day 5, and Andrew feels something crack inside his chest because he knows exactly what that's like. He's been living the same way. Present but not participating. Breathing but not alive. On week 3, Andrew takes Blue to Walmart. He needs dog food, and the house feels too quiet, too much like a waiting room, so he figures maybe a car ride will do something. Anything. Blue sits in the passenger seat like a statue. Doesn't look out the window. Doesn't react to other dogs in the parking lot. Just exists. Inside, Andrew grabs the cheap kibble he's been buying, the Foster budget kind, and heads toward checkout. But then he passes the pet aisle. The real pet aisle, not the basics section. The one with the expensive orthopedic beds and the hand-stitched collars and the toys that cost more than they should. And Blue's tail moves. Not a wag. Not even close. Just the tiniest twitch at the very tip, so small Andrew thinks he imagined it. She's staring at a blue squeaky toy shaped like a duck. It's the first time in 6 weeks he's seen her look at something instead of through it. Andrew picks up the duck. Blue's eyes follow it. He puts it in the cart. Then he looks at the collar around her neck, the thin red one with the cross+ tag that says, Foster, in permanent marker. He thinks about Max's collar, the leather one he still can't bring himself to throw away. He thinks about how nothing in his life has been permanent since Max died. How he's been treating everything, including Blue, like it's temporary. Like if he doesn't commit, he can't be destroyed. He thinks about the 4 families who brought Blue back. Who put temporary collars on her and temporary food bowls on their floors and gave her temporary love until it became inconvenient. Andrew stands in that Walmart aisle for 11 minutes. He knows because he checks his phone twice. He looks at the cheap nylon leash in his hand. Looks at the expensive blue leather collar on the shelf. Looks at Blue, who's looking at nothing again, who's already gone back to protecting herself. Then he does something that terrifies him. He puts the Foster collar in his cart and picks up the blue one. The expensive one. The kind you buy when you're not planning on returning the dog. He walks 3 aisles over to the engraving station, the one that makes custom tags while you wait. His hands are shaking when he types, Blue's home, on one line, and his phone number on the other. He doesn't buy the cheap bed. He buys the most expensive orthopedic one in the store. The kind that says you matter. The kind that says you're staying. At checkout, the cashier smiles at Blue, who doesn't react. She's beautiful, the woman says. How long have you had her? Andrew opens his mouth to say, I'm just fostering, but the words stick in his throat. He looks down at the collar in his hand, at the tag that's still warm from the engraving machine, and he realizes he's crying in the middle of Walmart at 3 p.m. on a Thursday. She's mine, he says instead, and it's the first true thing he's said in over a year. The parking lot is crowded when they get back to the car. Andrew loads the bags, then kneels down next to Blue. She's sitting on the pavement, head down, waiting. Always waiting. Waiting for him to start the engine and drive her back to Crossplus. Waiting for the pattern to repeat. Waiting for another goodbye. Andrew takes off the red Foster collar. Blue doesn't move. He holds up the blue one, the real one, and that's when her whole body goes rigid. She sees the tag. Sees her name. Sees the words, Blue's home, stamped in silver letters. And for the first time since the day she was born, Blue understands that she's not leaving. What happens next will be shared 17,000 times in 3 days. A woman 2 rows over will post it to TikTok with shaking hands. The video will make people cry in grocery stores, in office break rooms, in the middle of picking up their own kids from school. But right now, in this moment, Andrew isn't thinking about any of that. He's watching Blue's face as the weight of 4 rejections finally breaks open. He's watching her tail, dormant for 6 weeks, begin to move. Not a wag. Something bigger. Something that looks like every emotion she's been holding back pouring out all at once. She makes a sound. It's not a bark or a whine. It's something that comes from deeper, from the place where hope and grief and relief live in the same room. It's the sound of a dog who's been surviving finally learning how to live. Andrew doesn't remember deciding to adopt her. Doesn't remember the exact moment his rules stopped mattering. He just remembers Pearl's voice on the phone 2 days later, soft with something that sounds like pride. A family from out of state wants to meet Blue. They're driving in tomorrow. I told them I'd ask you first. And Andrew remembers his sister Charlotte's words, sharp and loving, "She's not the one afraid of being returned, Andrew. You're the one afraid of her staying." He remembers walking into Crossplus and seeing the other family waiting. Remembers the choice stretching out in front of him like a canyon. Remembers thinking about Max, about the year he spent hiding from permanence, about how Blue taught him that the opposite of loss isn't safety, it's the courage to love something even when you know it can break you. This is the story of a man who thought he was saving a dog, only to realize that in the middle of a crowded Walmart parking lot, surrounded by strangers who stopped to watch, she was the one saving him. This is the story of how Blue finally came home. And how Andrew finally let her stay. The first time Andrew sees Blue, she doesn't look like a dog who's been failed 4 times. She looks like a dog who's stopped being a dog altogether. Pearl walks him past the front kennels at Crossplus, past the dogs who bark and jump and press their noses against the chain link, desperate for attention. Past the puppies tumbling over each other, past the senior golden retriever with the graying muzzle who wags at everyone who passes. They walk all the way to the back, to the quiet section where the lights seem dimmer and the air feels heavier, and Pearl stops in front of the last kennel on the left. "That's her," Pearl says softly, and Andrew has to squint into the shadows to see anything at all. Blue is pressed into the far corner, her body folded so small she looks like she's trying to disappear into the concrete. Her coat is a mottled mix of gray and white, beautiful in theory, but matted and dull in practice. Her eyes are open, staring at nothing, and there's something about the emptiness in them that makes Andrew's chest tighten in a way he hasn't felt since the night Max stopped breathing in his arms. "Blue," Pearl calls gently. The dog doesn't move. Doesn't even blink. She's been like this for 2 weeks. Since the last family brought her back. Andrew crouches down, trying to make himself smaller, less threatening. "Hey, girl," he says, and his voice cracks on the second word because he hasn't called a dog girl since Max. "It's okay. I'm not going to hurt you." Blue's eyes shift slightly, just enough to register his presence, then return to the wall. It's the most devastating thing Andrew has seen in over a year, and he's spent the last 13 months seeing devastating things everywhere he looks. "What happened to her?" Andrew asks, even though Pearl already told him on the phone. He needs to hear it again, needs to understand how a dog ends up this broken. Pearl sighs and crosses her arms, not in frustration but in the way people do when they're trying to hold themselves together. First family adopted her as a puppy. Had her for 6 months, then moved to an apartment that didn't allow dogs. Brought her back. Second family thought she'd be good with their kids. She was too timid, too scared. Lasted 3 weeks. Third family wanted a running partner. She wouldn't leave the porch. Returned after a month. Fourth family, Pearl's voice catches, and she clears her throat. Fourth family said she was defective. That's the word they used. Defective. They had her for 5 days. Andrew feels something hot and angry rise in his throat. 5 days? She wouldn't sleep in their bed. Wouldn't cuddle. Wouldn't act like a normal dog, they said. Pearl looks at Blue, and there's so much sadness in her eyes it makes Andrew want to look away. After that, she just shut down. Stopped trying. Every time someone walks past her kennel, she flinches like she's waiting for them to take her somewhere else just to give her back again. Andrew stays crouched there for a long time, watching Blue refuse to hope. He thinks about Max, about the way Max used to greet him at the door every single day like Andrew was the best thing that ever happened to him. He thinks about how Max trusted him completely, how Max never doubted for 1 second that Andrew would always come home, always stay, always be there. And then Andrew thinks about the night Max died, how he was stuck in traffic on I-40 because of an accident, how he got to the emergency vet 11 minutes too late, how Max died without him, and how Andrew has been punishing himself ever since by refusing to love anything that deeply again. "I'll take her," Andrew says, and he doesn't recognize his own voice. Pearl puts her hand on his shoulder. "Andrew, I need you to understand what you're signing up for. Blue might never be a normal dog. She might never wag her tail or play fetch or sleep on your bed. She might live in your house like a ghost for the rest of her life. Are you okay with that?" Andrew looks at Blue, at the way she's made herself so small, at the way she's given up on the world before the world could give up on her again, and he realizes that he's been living exactly the same way. Present but not participating. Breathing but not alive. Protecting himself from loss by refusing to love. "Yeah," he says quietly. "I'm okay with that. If you've ever loved something so much it broke you when you lost it, drop a comment below. Tell me where you're watching from. Because this story is about to show you that broken things can still choose to be whole again." Blue doesn't fight when Andrew attaches the leash. She doesn't pull or resist or try to stay in the kennel. She just stands up slowly, mechanically, like someone who's gone through this routine so many times it's lost all meaning, and follows him to the car. Charlotte is waiting in the parking lot, leaning against Andrew's Honda with her arms crossed and that look on her face. The one that says she knows exactly how terrified he is and she's going to make sure he goes through with this anyway. "That's her?" Charlotte asks, and there's no judgment in her voice, just a soft kind of recognition. "That's her." Blue climbs into the back seat when Andrew opens the door, moves to the far corner, and lies down with her face pressed against the window. She doesn't look at the passing scenery on the drive home. Doesn't react when Charlotte talks to her in a gentle, encouraging voice. Doesn't acknowledge that anything is happening at all. When they get to Andrew's house, a small 2-bedroom rental with a fenced yard that hasn't been used since Max died, Blue walks inside, surveys the living room with those empty eyes, and chooses a corner. Not near the couch. Not by the window. The corner farthest from the door, behind the armchair Andrew never sits in anymore, where the light doesn't quite reach. She lies down on the hardwood floor, curls into a tight ball, and becomes invisible. "She'll warm up," Charlotte says, but she doesn't sound convinced. "Give her time." Time. Andrew has given himself 13 months of time, and he still can't walk past Max's food bowl without feeling like someone reached into his chest and squeezed. But he nods anyway, because what else is there to say? Charlotte stays for an hour, talking quietly, trying to coax Blue into reacting to something, anything. She brings out a tennis ball. Blue doesn't look at it. She opens a bag of treats. Blue's nose doesn't even twitch. She sits on the floor 3 feet away and just talks, about nothing, about everything, about how she knows Blue has been hurt but things can be different now, and Blue stares through her like she's made of glass. When Charlotte finally leaves, she hugs Andrew at the door a little longer than normal. "She's in there," Charlotte whispers. "The real her. She's just scared. Like someone else I know." Andrew doesn't respond, because if he does, he'll start crying, and he's already cried enough for one lifetime. That night, Blue doesn't move from her corner. Andrew puts a bowl of food and water near her, not too close, giving her space. She waits until he's upstairs in his bedroom before she eats. He knows because he sits at the top of the stairs in the dark, listening, and around midnight he hears the quiet click of her tags against the bowl, the soft lap of her tongue in the water. She eats alone because that's what you do when you've learned that people leave if you ask for too much. Day 2 is the same. Day 3 is worse. Mike and Dustin come over after work, both of them trying so hard to be helpful it makes Andrew's teeth ache. Mike is the optimistic one, the golden retriever in human form, and he bounds into the house with a rope toy and a smile that usually makes everything feel lighter. "All right, Blue," Mike says, dropping to his knees in the middle of the living room. "Let's play." Blue doesn't even look at him. She's chosen a new corner today, this one by the bookshelf, and she's lying with her back to the room like she's trying to erase herself from existence. Mike waves the toy. Makes encouraging noises. Does a ridiculous little dance that would make any other dog lose their mind with excitement. Blue's breathing doesn't even change. After 10 minutes, Mike sits back on his heels, and Andrew watches his friend's face fall in real time. "Has she moved at all?" Mike asks quietly. "To eat. At night. When I'm not in the room." Dustin, who's been standing in the doorway watching, shakes his head slowly. He's the quiet one, the thoughtful one, the one who notices things other people miss. "It's like she's not even here, man. Like we're talking about a dog that doesn't exist." And that's exactly what it's like. Blue lives in Andrew's house the way a ghost lives in a house, present but not seen, there but not acknowledged, taking up space without actually occupying it. She doesn't scratch at doors or whine to go outside or leave toys scattered around or do any of the things dogs do that make them feel like part of a family. She just survives, hour by hour, waiting for the inevitable moment when Andrew puts her back in the car and returns her to Crossplus. On day 5, Andrew sits on the floor across the room from Blue's corner and talks to her. Not in the high-pitched, encouraging voice people use with dogs, but in his normal voice, the tired one, the honest one. "I know you don't trust me," he says. "I get it. People have let you down. They made you think you were home and then they took it away. I can't promise I'm better than them. I can't promise I won't mess this up." He pauses, swallows hard. "But I'm tired, Blue. I'm so tired of being alone in this house. And I think you're tired too." Blue doesn't respond. Doesn't even flick an ear in his direction. But Andrew swears, just for a second, her breathing changes. Just for a second, she hears him. If your heart is breaking for Blue right now, hit that subscribe button. Because what happens next is going to make you believe in second chances again. And if you've ever been the person who needed a second chance, the one who stopped hoping because hoping hurt too much, leave a comment. You're not alone. Neither is Blue. Week 3 arrives without ceremony. Blue has established a routine: eat when Andrew isn't looking, drink when the house is quiet, exist in corners where she won't be noticed. She follows Andrew outside twice a day to use the bathroom, walks in a tight circle on the grass, then hurries back inside to her latest chosen corner. She's not aggressive. She's not destructive. She's just absent. A dog-shaped absence in a house full of them. Andrew is running low on dog food. He's been buying the cheap stuff from the dollar store, the foster budget kind that Pearl recommended, because why spend money on premium kibble for a dog who's only staying temporarily? That's what he tells himself. That's the rule: don't invest in temporary things, because investing makes them feel permanent, and permanent things are the ones that destroy you when they leave. It's Thursday afternoon, overcast and cold for October, when Andrew decides to make a Walmart run. He needs dog food, paper towels, batteries for the smoke detector that's been beeping for 3 days. He grabs his keys, heads for the door, then stops. Looks back at Blue, who's tucked behind the recliner, barely visible in the shadows. "You want to come?" The question surprises him. He hasn't taken her anywhere except the backyard. Hasn't wanted to, really, because what's the point of making her think she's part of his life when she's not? But the house feels suffocating today, and maybe the car will do something. Anything. Maybe the change of scenery will crack through whatever wall Blue has built around herself. Blue doesn't react to the invitation, but she doesn't resist when Andrew clips on her leash, the thin red one from CrossPlus with the laminated tag that says Foster in permanent marker. She walks to the car with that same mechanical compliance, climbs into the passenger seat, and stares straight ahead at nothing. The drive to Walmart is quiet. Andrew tries the radio, but every song feels too happy or too sad, so he turns it off. He glances at Blue every few minutes, hoping for something. A tail wag, a glance out the window, any sign that she's aware she's in a car heading somewhere, but she's perfected the art of being present without existing. Walmart on a Thursday afternoon is its own special kind of purgatory. Fluorescent lights harsh enough to give you a headache, aisles too wide and too bright, that specific smell of industrial cleaner and cardboard. Andrew grabs a cart, and Blue walks beside him on her short leash, staying so close to his leg she's almost tripping him. Not because she's bonding with him. Because she's trying to be invisible in a store full of people. He heads straight for the pet section, navigating past the pharmacy, the seasonal aisle already full of Christmas decorations even though Halloween hasn't happened yet, the electronics section where a demo TV is playing a movie no one's watching. Blue's nails click on the linoleum, a steady rhythm that sounds lonely even in a crowded store. The pet aisle stretches in front of them, overwhelming in its options. Toys stacked to the ceiling, beds in every size and color, leashes and collars and bowls and treats and grooming supplies and all the things people buy when they're building a life with a dog, not just fostering one temporarily. Andrew reaches for the cheap kibble on the bottom shelf, the same brand he's been buying, the 10-pound bag that costs $8, when he sees it. Blue's tail moves. Not a wag. Not even close. Just the tiniest twitch at the very tip, barely perceptible, a movement so small Andrew thinks he imagined it. But then it happens again. Once. Twice. The smallest possible signal that something inside Blue hasn't completely died. She's looking at a toy. A blue rubber duck with a squeaker inside, sitting on the shelf at her eye level, marked down to $3.99. It's ridiculous and cheap and probably won't last a week, but Blue is looking at it the way someone looks at something they used to love before they learned that loving things gets them hurt. Andrew's hand is shaking when he picks up the duck. He squeezes it once, and it lets out a pathetic little squeak. Blue's ears shift forward. Just barely. Just enough. "You like this?" Andrew asks, and his voice comes out rougher than he intends. Blue doesn't look at him. Her eyes are locked on the duck, and for the first time in 3 weeks, Andrew sees something in her expression that isn't emptiness. It's not quite hope. It's more like the shadow of a memory of hope, a ghost of something she used to feel before the world taught her better. Andrew puts the duck in his cart. Blue's eyes follow it. And something shifts in Andrew's chest, something that feels dangerous and terrifying and a lot like the beginning of caring. He should leave. Should grab the cheap dog food and get out of this aisle before he does something stupid. But he doesn't. He stands there, staring at the wall of collars and leashes, and he thinks about the red Foster collar around Blue's neck. The one that says temporary. The one that reminds both of them that this isn't real, isn't permanent, isn't worth believing in. He thinks about Max's collar, the leather one with the brass buckle, the one that's still sitting in a drawer in his bedroom because he can't bear to throw it away. He thinks about how that collar meant something. Meant forever. Meant family. And he thinks about Blue, who's been wearing temporary collars for 4 families, who's never had anything that said, "You're mine and I'm keeping you." The expensive collars are 2 shelves up. Real leather, hand-stitched, the kind that cost $40 and last a lifetime. There's a blue one, almost the exact color of the rubber duck, with silver hardware that catches the fluorescent light. Andrew picks it up. It's heavy in his hand, substantial, real. The kind of thing you buy when you mean it. His heart is pounding. His hands are sweating. This is just a collar. It's just a piece of leather. But it's not, and he knows it, and Blue knows it, and somehow this $40 collar is the scariest thing Andrew has touched since he signed Max's euthanasia consent form. "I'm tired of temporary," Andrew whispers to no one, to Blue, to himself. "I'm so tired of everything being temporary." Blue is still staring at the duck in the cart. She hasn't looked at Andrew once. Hasn't given him any reason to think she'll ever be more than a ghost in his house. But her tail twitched. For 5 seconds, her tail twitched, and that's enough. That has to be enough. Andrew puts the expensive collar in his cart. And then, because he's apparently committed to this moment of insanity, he walks 3 aisles over to the engraving station, the little kiosk with the machine that makes custom tags while you wait. His hands are shaking so badly it takes him 4 tries to type out the words correctly. Line 1, Blue's home. Line 2, his phone number. The machine whirs and cuts and spits out a silver bone-shaped tag that catches the light like a promise. Andrew stares at it for a full minute, this little piece of metal that weighs nothing but somehow feels like it weighs everything, and he realizes he's crying in the middle of Walmart on a Thursday afternoon while a teenager in a red vest asks if he needs help finding anything. "No," Andrew manages. "I think I found it. If you're crying right now, I need you to know you're not alone." Hit that like button if you believe broken people and broken dogs deserve a second chance. Share this video with someone who needs to hear it. Because what happens when they get back to the parking lot, what happens when Blue sees that tag, is going to restore your faith in love. Andrew doesn't remember walking to the checkout. Doesn't remember loading the bags into the cart or thanking the cashier or pushing through the automatic doors back into the cold October afternoon. His brain is somewhere else, somewhere in the space between terror and commitment, and his hands won't stop shaking as he loads the Walmart bags into the trunk. The parking lot is crowded. It's that post-work rush hour when everyone stops to grab what they need before heading home, and there are cars circling for spots, shopping carts rattling across the asphalt, people hurrying with their heads down against the wind. Normal people doing normal things on a normal Thursday. Andrew opens the passenger door. Blue is exactly where he left her, sitting upright on the seat, staring straight ahead at nothing. She doesn't look at him when he kneels down beside the car. Doesn't acknowledge that he's there. "Blue," Andrew says, and his voice is shaking as badly as his hands. "I need you to stay still for a second, okay?" He reaches for the red Foster collar around her neck. His fingers fumble with the plastic buckle, once, twice, 3 times before it finally clicks open. The collar falls away, and for a moment Blue's neck is bare, vulnerable, exposed. She doesn't move. Doesn't react. But Andrew swears he can feel her holding her breath. He pulls the blue leather collar from the Walmart bag. The new tag dangles from it, catching the late afternoon sun, the engraved letters sharp and permanent and terrifying. Blue's home. His phone number. A promise he's not sure he knows how to keep. Andrew's hands are shaking so badly he can barely work the buckle. "This one's different," he whispers, more to himself than to Blue. "This one means you're staying." The collar slides around her neck. The leather is soft and new and probably feels strange against her fur. Andrew adjusts it, making sure it's not too tight, and then he attaches the tag. It makes a soft clicking sound as it settles against the others, her rabies tag, her microchip tag, and now this one. The one that matters. Blue's head turns. Slowly. Incrementally. Like she's fighting against every instinct that tells her not to hope. Her eyes drop to the tag hanging from her collar, and Andrew watches her read it. He doesn't know if dogs can read, doesn't know if she understands the words, but something in her body language shifts. Something that looks like recognition. Something that looks like understanding. And then something that looks like fear. Blue takes one step backward. Off the seat. Onto the pavement. Away from Andrew. Away from the collar. Away from the possibility that this might be real. No, no, hey, Andrew reaches for her, but she's backing up, her whole body trembling, her eyes locked on his face with an expression that's tearing Andrew apart from the inside out. She's looking at him like he's about to break her. Like this is the moment when he reveals it was all a lie. Like the collar is just another trick in a long line of tricks that have taught her never to believe in anything. "Blue, it's okay," Andrew says, and he's crying now, fully crying, tears running down his face in the middle of a Walmart parking lot while people walk past with their shopping carts. "You're not leaving. Do you understand? You're not leaving." Blue stops moving. She's standing 3 feet away, her body rigid, her tail tucked, her ears flat against her head. She's shaking so hard Andrew can see it from where he's kneeling. And then she does something that will haunt Andrew for the rest of his life. She looks at the car. Then at Andrew. Then at the tag around her neck. And then back at the car. Like she's trying to calculate the equation. Like she's trying to figure out if the car is taking her back to Crossplus or if this time, impossibly, the car is taking her home. Andrew's phone is in his pocket. He doesn't know why he pulls it out. Doesn't know why his fingers find the camera app and press record. Maybe because some part of him knows this moment is bigger than him and Blue. Maybe because some part of him understands that what's about to happen needs to be witnessed. "Blue," Andrew says, his voice thick with tears. "We're going home. Do you hear me? We're going home, and you're staying, and I'm not giving you back. I'm not, I can't," his voice breaks completely. "I can't do temporary anymore. I can't keep pretending that I'm okay with you leaving. So you're staying. You're staying, Blue." For 6 seconds, nothing happens. Blue stands frozen on the asphalt, trapped between hope and survival, and Andrew kneels beside his car, waiting for her to choose. And then Blue's mask breaks. It doesn't crack. It doesn't chip. It shatters completely, all at once, 6 weeks of self-protection exploding outward in a single moment. Her tail moves, not a twitch this time, but a full wag, frantic and desperate and completely uncontrolled. Her mouth opens, and a sound comes out that Andrew has never heard a dog make before. It's not a bark. It's not a whine. It's something primal and raw and devastating, a mix between a cry and a howl and a sob, the sound of every emotion Blue has been holding back for 4 families pouring out all at once. People in the parking lot stop walking. A woman 2 rows over drops her shopping bags. A man loading groceries into his trunk turns and stares. A teenager in a car nearby rolls down her window, her phone already out and recording. Blue runs to Andrew. Not walks. Runs. Crashes into him with enough force to knock him backward onto the pavement, and suddenly she's in his lap, her whole body shaking, that sound still coming from somewhere deep in her chest, and her tail is wagging so hard her entire back end is moving, and she's licking his face and his hands and pressing her head against his chest like she's trying to crawl inside him and stay there forever. I know, Andrew sobs, wrapping his arms around her, holding her like he should have held Max one last time. I know, baby. I know. You're home. You're finally home. Blue howls again, and this time it's pure relief. This time it's the sound of a dog who's been drowning finally breaking the surface. This time it's the sound of hope winning. The woman 2 rows over is crying. Andrew can see her through his tears, her hand over her mouth, her own phone out recording. The man at the truck has stopped loading groceries and is just standing there, watching. The teenager's video is already uploading to TikTok with shaking hands and a caption that will read, "I just watched a rescue dog realize she's finally home and I'm sobbing." Andrew doesn't care about any of them. He's holding Blue, and Blue is holding him back, her paws on his shoulders, her face pressed against his neck, and for the first time in 13 months Andrew feels something other than grief. He feels like maybe, just maybe, broken things can choose to be whole again. If you're sobbing right now, if your heart feels like it's been ripped open and stitched back together all at once, leave a comment and tell me where you're watching from. Tell me about the pet you lost or the one you saved or the one who saved you. Because Blue's story isn't over yet. And neither is Andrew's. The video goes viral in 18 hours. Andrew doesn't post it. The teenager in the parking lot does. Then the woman 2 rows over posts hers. Then someone who knows someone who was there posts theirs. By Friday morning, foster dog realizes she's home has been shared 17,000 times across 3 platforms, and Andrew's phone won't stop buzzing with notifications he doesn't know how to turn off. But that's not what matters. What matters is that Blue sleeps in his bed that night. Not because he invites her. Because she chooses to. At 2 in the morning, Andrew wakes up to the sound of her nails clicking on the hardwood stairs, and then there's a weight on the foot of his bed, and when he opens his eyes, Blue is curled up in a tight ball on top of the covers, watching him with an expression he's never seen before. It's not emptiness. It's not fear. It's something that looks like trust testing its boundaries. "Hey, girl," Andrew whispers into the dark, and Blue's tail wags once against the blanket. He falls back asleep with his hand resting on her side, feeling her breathe, and when he wakes up at dawn, she's closer. Not quite touching him. But closer. Friday and Saturday blur together in a haze of small miracles. Blue eats breakfast while Andrew is in the room. She follows him from the kitchen to the living room instead of hiding. She plays with the rubber duck for 11 seconds before remembering she's not supposed to want things. Mike and Dustin come over on Saturday afternoon and Blue doesn't hide. She stays in the living room, pressed against Andrew's leg, but she stays. Is that the same dog? Mike asks, his voice hushed with something like wonder. Yeah, Andrew says, his hand absently stroking Blue's head. Same dog. Different ending. Charlotte calls Saturday night. I saw the video, she says, and Andrew can hear the tears in her voice. Andrew, I'm so proud of you. I didn't do anything, Andrew says. I just bought a collar. No, Charlotte says firmly. You chose to stay. That's everything. Sunday morning, Andrew is making coffee when his phone rings. Pearl's name lights up the screen, and something cold settles in Andrew's stomach before he even answers. Andrew, Pearl says, and there's something in her voice that makes every muscle in Andrew's body go rigid. I need to talk to you about Blue. The coffee maker gurgles in the background. Blue is asleep on the couch. On the couch, not hiding behind it, and Andrew watches her chest rise and fall while Pearl's words arrange themselves into a sentence he doesn't want to hear. A family reached out, Pearl continues carefully. They've been looking for a dog like Blue for months. They saw the video. They're driving in from Kentucky tomorrow, they want to meet her. They have a farm, acres of land, 2 kids who are gentle and patient. Andrew, they could give her everything. Andrew's hand tightens around his phone so hard he hears the case crack. She's not available. Andrew. She's not available, Andrew repeats, his voice flat and dangerous. She's mine. There's a long pause on the other end of the line. When Pearl speaks again, her voice is softer. You signed a foster agreement. Technically, Blue is still Cross-Plus property until adoption papers are finalized. And these people, they're perfect, Andrew. They're exactly what we look for in adoptive families. I don't care. I need you to think about what's best for Blue, Pearl says, and Andrew can hear her choosing her words carefully. I know you've bonded. I saw the video. But this family can offer her stability, space, other dogs to socialize with. I can offer her a home, Andrew interrupts, and his voice cracks on the last word. I can offer her someone who isn't going to give her back when she has a bad day. Someone who knows what it's like to be broken. Someone who... He stops, presses his hand over his eyes. Pearl, I can't lose her. I can't lose another. He can't finish the sentence. Can't say Max's name out loud. Can't admit that somewhere in the last week, Blue stopped being a foster dog and became the only thing standing between Andrew and the grief that's been waiting to swallow him whole for 13 months. They're coming tomorrow at 2, Pearl says quietly. I'm not saying you have to let her go. I'm saying you need to think about what you're holding on to and why. And if you decide you want to keep her, Andrew, you need to make it official. No more foster agreement. No more temporary. You need to commit. The line goes dead. Andrew stands in his kitchen, staring at his phone, feeling the weight of the last year pressing down on his shoulders. Blue is still asleep on the couch. She's dreaming, her paws are twitching, her nose moving like she's chasing something good. And Andrew realizes with a clarity that feels like falling that he's terrified. Not of Blue leaving. Of Blue staying. Because staying means permanent, and permanent means he has something to lose again, and losing Max nearly destroyed him. How is he supposed to risk that kind of pain twice? He doesn't sleep that night. He sits on the floor next to the couch, watching Blue breathe, trying to memorize the way she looks peaceful for the first time since he met her. Trying to decide if love is worth the inevitable grief that comes with it. At 3 in the morning, Charlotte lets herself in with the spare key Andrew gave her years ago. She doesn't say anything. Just sits down on the floor next to him, shoulder to shoulder, and waits. "Pearl called you," Andrew says finally. "She's worried about you." "I can't do it again, Charlotte." His voice is barely a whisper. "I can't watch another dog die. I can't be too late. I can't." Blue isn't the one who's scared of being returned, Charlotte interrupts, and her voice is gentle but unflinching. "You're the one who's scared of her staying." Andrew's breath catches in his throat. "You've been living like a ghost for over a year," Charlotte continues. "Fostering dogs so you can help without committing. Keeping everything temporary so nothing can hurt you. But Andrew, Blue isn't Max. She's not a replacement and she's not a betrayal. She's a second chance. And second chances are supposed to be scary. What if I lose her?" Andrew's voice breaks completely. "What if I let myself love her and then she?" "Then you'll survive it," Charlotte says, taking his hand. "Because you survived losing Max. And you'll survive losing Blue if that day ever comes. But you know what you won't survive? Looking back 20 years from now and realizing you gave away the best thing that ever happened to you because you were too scared to try." Andrew looks at Blue, still sleeping, still peaceful, still trusting that tomorrow will be the same as today. Still believing, for the first time in her life, that she's finally home. "She deserves better than me," Andrew whispers. "She deserves someone who shows up," Charlotte says. "She deserves someone who chooses her even when it's terrifying. She deserves someone who knows what it's like to be broken and chooses to be whole anyway. Andrew, she deserves you. And you deserve her. So tomorrow, you're going to get in your car, drive to Crossplus, and you're going to fight for her." Charlotte leaves just before dawn. Blue wakes up an hour later, stretches, and looks at Andrew with those eyes that aren't empty anymore. Her tail wags. Once. Twice. 3 times. And Andrew makes his decision. If you've ever had to choose between protecting your heart and breaking it open, comment below. Tell me about the risk you took. Tell me if it was worth it. Because tomorrow at Crossplus, Andrew is about to find out if love is stronger than fear. Share this video with someone who needs to hear that second chances are worth fighting for. We're almost at the end, and I promise you, it's going to be worth every tear. Monday arrives with a cold rain that turns the world gray and unforgiving. Andrew gets in his car at 1:30, which gives him exactly 30 minutes to drive to Crossplus and either commit to the most terrifying decision of his life or walk away from the only thing that's made him feel alive since Max died. Blue is in the passenger seat, wearing her blue collar, staring out the window at the rain. Whatever happens, Andrew tells her, his hands white-knuckled on the steering wheel, "You're not going back to that kennel. You hear me? Even if I'm not, even if this family is better. You're not going back to that corner. I'll make sure of it." Blue looks at him. Just looks. And Andrew swears she understands every word. The CrossPlus parking lot has 3 cars in it when Andrew pulls in. Pearl's truck. A silver SUV he doesn't recognize with Kentucky plates. And a red sedan that probably belongs to one of the volunteers. Andrew sits in his car for 5 full minutes, engine running, hands shaking, trying to remember how to breathe. Then he sees them through the window. The family from Kentucky. A man and a woman, both probably mid-40s, holding hands while they talk to Pearl. 2 kids, maybe 10 and 12, sitting on the bench outside the meet and greet room. They look kind. They look patient. They look like exactly the kind of family Pearl described. The kind of family that could give Blue everything. Andrew's hand is on the door handle when Blue makes a sound. Not the howl from the parking lot. Something quieter. Something that sounds like a question. He looks at her, and she's looking back, and Andrew realizes that Blue isn't asking if they're going inside. She's asking if they're going home. Yeah, Andrew says, and his voice doesn't shake this time. We're going home. But first I need to do something. He opens the door. Clips Blue's leash. Walks through the rain into CrossPlus with his heart pounding so hard he can feel it in his teeth. Pearl sees him first. Her eyes widen, and she starts to speak, but Andrew raises his hand. I need the adoption papers, Andrew says. Now. Before I lose my nerve. The family from Kentucky turns around. The man smiles, a genuine, kind smile that makes Andrew feel like even more of a selfish bastard for what he's about to do. You must be Andrew, the man says, extending his hand. We saw the video. That moment with Blue was incredible. You've done an amazing job with her. Andrew shakes his hand because he was raised with manners, but he doesn't let go of Blue's leash. Thank you. And I'm sorry you drove all this way. But Blue's not available. She's already been adopted. Pearl's mouth opens in surprise. The woman from Kentucky looks disappointed but not angry. Oh, she says softly. We didn't realize. Pearl said she was still available this morning. She was, Andrew says, looking at Pearl, silently begging her to understand. But not anymore. She's mine. Officially. If you'll let me sign the papers. The silence in the lobby stretches for 3 heartbeats. Then Pearl's face breaks into the biggest smile Andrew has ever seen, and she's pulling papers from behind the desk, and she's saying something about waivers and fees and vet records, but Andrew isn't listening because he's kneeling down next to Blue, and Blue is pressing her head against his chest, and her tail is wagging. The family from Kentucky watches for a moment. Then the woman crouches down and reaches out slowly, carefully, and Blue, who wouldn't make eye contact a week ago, lets the woman scratch her ears. She's lucky, the woman says, and there are tears in her eyes. We would have loved her. But I think she already found what she was looking for. Andrew signs 7 different pieces of paper. His hand is shaking so badly the signatures barely look like his name, but they're legal, they're binding, they're permanent. Pearl processes the adoption fee, $200 that Andrew pays without looking at his bank account. And then she's handing him a folder marked Blue, official adoption records, and pulling him into a hug that lasts long enough for Andrew to start crying into her shoulder. She chose you first, Pearl whispers. I'm glad you finally chose her back. The rain has stopped by the time Andrew and Blue walk back to the car. The sun is breaking through the clouds in those dramatic rays that look like something from a movie, and Blue is walking differently now. Not with her head down and her tail tucked, but beside Andrew, matching his pace, looking up at him every few steps like she's checking to make sure he's still there. Andrew opens the passenger door, and Blue jumps in without hesitation. He buckles his seatbelt, starts the engine, and looks at her. Ready to go home? Blue's tail wags. Not a twitch. A full, genuine, unguarded wag. They drive home through afternoon traffic while Andrew ugly cries the entire way, one hand on the wheel and one hand on Blue's head, and when they pull into his driveway, Andrew sees Charlotte sitting on his front porch with a cardboard box at her feet. "What's that?" Andrew asks as he gets out of the car. Charlotte grins, and it's the first real smile Andrew has seen from her in over a year. "Open it." Inside the box is a new welcome mat. Navy blue with white letters that say, "Home is where the dog is." Andrew laughs, actually laughs, and it feels like breathing after being underwater for too long. That night, Andrew updates the viral video. He's sitting on the couch with Blue curled up next to him, on the couch, touching him, her head on his lap, and he films a short clip on his phone. A week ago, Andrew says to the camera, his voice thick with emotion, "I posted a video of Blue realizing she was home. But I was still calling her a foster. I was still keeping one foot out the door. Today I signed the adoption papers. Today I stopped being temporary. And I wanted you all to know that broken people and broken dogs, we're worth fighting for. We're worth choosing. We're worth the risk." Blue lifts her head and looks directly at the camera, and her tail wags, and someone in the comments will later say it's the most beautiful thing they've ever seen. The video gets 2 million views in 3 days. But Andrew doesn't care about the numbers. He cares about the message he gets from a woman in Oregon who says she saw the video and decided to adopt the senior dog she'd been fostering for 6 months. He cares about the man in Texas who says he's been too scared to get another dog since his passed away, but Blue's story gave him hope. He cares about the teenager in Michigan who says she shared the video with her dad, and now they're going to the shelter this weekend. 2 weeks later, Andrew is sleeping when he feels Blue move. She's been sleeping at the foot of the bed, giving him space, respecting boundaries that Andrew never actually set. But tonight she crawls up the length of the bed, curls up against his side, and puts her head on his chest. Andrew wraps his arm around her, feels her breathing sync with his, and whispers into the dark, "You saved me, you know that? I thought I was saving you, but you saved me." Blue sighs, content, peaceful, home, and falls asleep while Andrew cries quiet tears of gratitude into her fur. The video ends with a shot of Blue 6 months later. She's sleeping on the big orthopedic bed from Walmart, the one Andrew bought in a moment of terrified commitment, surrounded by toys she actually plays with now. Her tail wags even in sleep. She's gained 15 pounds of healthy weight. Her coat is shiny. Her eyes are bright. And Andrew? Andrew is sitting on the floor next to her bed, working on his laptop, one hand absently stroking her head. The foster sign is gone from his gate. In its place is Charlotte's welcome mat. On the screen, text appears, "Blue was returned by 4 families before Andrew. She spent 6 weeks as a ghost in his house. She's been officially his for 6 months now. She hasn't spent a single night in a corner since the day he signed the papers." And Andrew? He hasn't felt like a ghost either. The final shot is of Blue and Andrew on the couch. Blue's head is in his lap, her tail wagging, her eyes closed in contentment. And Andrew is smiling, really smiling, for the first time in over a year. Text appears one more time. Second chances aren't about being perfect. They're about showing up even when you're terrified. They're about choosing love even when love has hurt you before. They're about broken things deciding to be whole together. Blue is home. And so is Andrew. If this story changed something in you, if it made you believe that second chances are real, leave a comment telling me what you're going to do differently tomorrow. Subscribe if you believe love is worth the risk. Share this with someone who needs to hear that being broken doesn't mean being beyond repair. Because somewhere right now, there's a dog sitting in a shelter corner, and there's a person sitting alone in their house, and both of them think they're too damaged to be loved. They're wrong. And Blue's story proves it.